I carry the authority to burn a world from orbit. Most days I hope never to use it. The code lives in a palm-sized interface locked to my biometrics, 12 characters that trigger oxidizer dispersal across a planetary surface. Command trusts maybe 20 officers in the entire fleet with that kind of power, and they pick us not because we are quick on the trigger, but because we are slow, methodical, the kind of person who checks the feed twice, then walks outside to verify what the camera showed, then checks the feed again before filing a report. 7 years ago, I burned half a cargo outpost because protocol said 3 unexplained seizures meant contagion risk. On the 4th day, a miner crawled out of a sealed storage bay where he had been trapped with a broken ankle and died under my hand because I had already scorched the medical wing to slag. Command cleared me, said I followed procedure. The miner's daughter sent me pictures of her father for 2 years until I changed my contact codes. So now I am slow. Maybe too slow. That is the calculation I run every time the fleet drops me onto a settlement that has gone dark. 15 minutes to Varnus, Beck calls back through the open cockpit door. All systems nominal. I lean forward in the jump seat and key the team channel. Final brief. Helen, you are with me for initial survey. Davidson and Ford, you secure the landing zone and establish perimeter. Beck, you stay with the shuttle and monitor feeds. Standard blackout protocol. Assume nothing works until we verify it ourselves. Crew medic Helen Ellison sits across from me in the cargo bay, already strapped in, her med kit locked between her boots. She is good at her job, which means she argues when I make calls she thinks are wrong. I keep her close because I need someone willing to say no. What is Varnus growing? She asks. Grain and root vegetables. Population sits around 180 during harvest season, closer to 90 the rest of the year. They filed a routine supply request 8 days ago, then went silent. No distress signal, no follow-up traffic, nothing. Satellite shows the fields are still being worked and the settlement is intact. So why are we here? Because silence is cheaper than a transmission, I say, and because automated systems can keep a farm running for weeks after everyone is dead. The shuttle banks. Through the small viewport I can see Varnus rolling underneath us. A single continent wrapped in brown prairie. One cluster of white structures visible against the dirt like dice scattered on a table. The fields surrounding the settlement are geometric perfection. Straight rows of green stretching for kilometers in every direction, broken only by irrigation channels and access roads. Everything looks maintained, tended, alive. Feeds alive, Beck calls from the cockpit. Pulling camera data now. I have 16 external angles, maybe 30 internal. Everyone is showing normal activity. I unbuckle and move forward, bracing myself against the doorframe as the shuttle drops into final approach. Beck is young, maybe 24, with pilot certifications she earned before she was old enough to drink. Her screens show a grid of camera feeds, each one displaying a slice of colony life. 2 people walking along a covered pathway, one hand raised in greeting. A group of children racing past a playground. An older man in administrator coveralls pacing a corridor with a tablet tucked under his arm. Those are live feeds, I ask. Timestamps say so. Here, watch this one. She taps a screen showing a field camera. A woman in work clothes crosses the frame, stops to adjust something on a harvester panel, then continues out of view. That just happened. 30 seconds ago. I watch the feeds as we descend. Everything moves in the slow rhythm of routine work. No running, no panic, no empty streets or abandoned equipment. Just people going about their day under late afternoon light that stretches their shadows long across the dirt. We touch down on a landing pad near the settlement's eastern edge. A rectangle of poured composite surrounded by cargo containers and maintenance sheds. The shuttle's landing struts compress and the engines spool down. Through the viewport I can see the nearest residential pods about 50 meters away, their doors closed, their windows dark behind security shutters. No one comes out to meet us. Beck, keep those feeds running. I say. Call out anything that changes. Everyone else, you are with me. I key my suit's external channel to broadcast on standard colony frequencies. This is Quarantine Officer Isaac Holt with the United Colonial Fleet. We are responding to your communications blackout. Please acknowledge. Nothing. I repeat the message twice more while my team gathers at the ramp. Helen has her scanner out, running atmospheric samples. Davidson and Ford carry short rifles, muzzles down but ready. Both of them are good in a crisis. Calm, disciplined, the kind of shooters who wait for a target before pulling a trigger. Atmosphere is clean, Helen reports. Oxygen mix is standard. No particulates, no biologicals, nothing that would explain a colony-wide collapse. Then where are they? Ford asks. The ramp lowers. I am the first one down, boots hitting composite with a sound that carries too far in the silence. The settlement is intact. Buildings undamaged, pathways clear, equipment neatly stored. But the absence is immediate and total. No voices, no footsteps, no ambient sound of people living in close quarters. Just wind moving through empty space and the distant click of irrigation timers in the fields. Davidson, Ford, sweep the perimeter. I want to know if anything moved in the last 30 seconds. Helen, you are with me. We are going to find out why the cameras show a colony full of people, and I am standing in a ghost town. We move toward the nearest residential cluster, a group of 6 pods arranged around a central courtyard with a covered well. Each pod is maybe 8 meters by 5, prefabricated modules designed for quick assembly and thermal efficiency. The doors are closed but not locked. I push the first one open and step inside. One room. Bed against the far wall, neatly made. Small table with 2 chairs. Storage locker standing open, clothes hanging inside. Everything orderly. Everything suggesting someone stepped out 15 minutes ago and plans to return. On the table sits a half-finished cup of something that might have been coffee once. I press my gloved hand against the ceramic. Cold. Days cold. Same here, Helen calls from the next pod. Bed made, no signs of struggle, nothing out of place, just empty. We check 4 more pods. All the same. I try to square what I am seeing on the ground with what Beck's feeds are showing. People walking, working, greeting each other, and the numbers will not line up. Beck, I say into the team channel. Give me a count. How many distinct individuals have you identified on the feeds since we landed? A pause. 43 unique faces, maybe more if I run recognition software. Do it. I want names cross-referenced with the colony roster. I want to know who these people are. I move deeper into the settlement. Helen half a step behind me. We pass a playground, swings moving slightly in the wind, their chains creaking. A vertical farm in a converted cargo container, its grow lights still cycling. Trays of seedlings growing in neat rows with no one to tend them. An administration building with its door propped open and paperwork scattered across a desk inside as if someone left mid-task. The feeds say this place is occupied. The ground says everyone vanished. Halt. Helen stops in front of an external camera mounted on a utility pole. She points up at the lens. Look at this. I follow her gaze. The camera housing looks normal at first. Standard weatherproof casing, power cable running down the pole to a buried conduit. But the lens itself has a shine to it that is wrong. Not the flat darkness of optical glass, but something with depth. A translucence like thin ice over water. I pull a compact toolkit from my belt and extend the telescoping probe. Standing on my toes, I can just reach the lens. I scrape the edge of the probe across the surface. A translucent film comes away in curls, thin as plastic wrap, but with a structure underneath that catches the light. It is warm. Body temperature maybe slightly higher. Under magnification, it shows cellular detail. Walls and membranes arranged in tight geometric patterns, like stretched fruit skin or the inner surface of an eyelid. That is organic, Helen says quietly, growing over the camera lens. She looks at me, and I can see her working through the same calculation I am. If it is over the lens, then the camera is not recording what is actually happening. It is recording through a living filter. Or the filter is recording, I say, and playing back what it captured. I move to the next camera mount. Same film, same warmth. The third camera is harder to reach, set into the corner of a building's overhang, but when I finally scrape a sample, the result is identical. Every external camera I can access shows the same infection. Beck, I call. Pull archived footage from yesterday. I want to see the same camera angles, same time of day. Give me a minute. Helen bags the samples while I run the numbers in my head. If every camera is compromised, then every feed is suspect. The people we are seeing on the monitors might not be there at all. Might never have been there. Might be recordings playing on a loop to mask something that happened days ago. Got it, Beck says. Sending to your tablet now. I pull up the archived footage on my wrist display, split screening it against the current feed. Same camera angle, same covered pathway. And there, the same woman in work clothes crossing the frame, same gate, same pause to adjust the harvester panel, same exit stage left. The gestures are identical down to the timing. Frame perfect repetition. I scroll back further. 3 days ago. The woman appears again. Same walk, same pause, same exit. 6 days ago. Same thing. It is a recording, I say. The film captured movement, and now it is playing it back. Everything we are seeing on the feeds is theatre. This colony has been empty for at least a week. The network stamps time on receipt, not capture, so the loops look live while replaying. Then where did they go? Helen asks. I do not answer because I am already moving toward the edge of the settlement where the residential pods give way to industrial structures, greenhouses, equipment sheds, water treatment. I am looking for drag marks, blood trails, scorched earth. The things that cameras do not show because they happened where the lenses could not reach. I find the first sign near an irrigation well. The ground is churned here, boot prints layered over each other, soil disturbed in arcs that suggest something heavy being pulled. I follow the trail to the well's access hatch. It hangs open, its lock snapped clean through. Looking down into the darkness, I can make out the top rungs of a ladder descending into water channels that run beneath the fields. On the third rung, caught on a bolt, a glove. Work glove, canvas exterior, the kind every colonist on an agricultural world owns half a dozen of. But this one is shredded, pulled apart, as if the hand inside fought against something dragging it down into the dark. Davidson, I say into the channel. Bring the portable floods. I need light down this well shaft. While I wait, I walk the perimeter. Near a harvester, I find more evidence. Fabric caught in the machine's maintenance panel, brown with old blood. A boot lying on its side between rows of grain, empty, laces still tied, as if the foot simply slid out. No, not slid. I pick it up and see the interior is not empty. There is an ankle inside. The flesh ends in a clean separation, but not from a blade. The bone shows threads of something pale wrapped around the marrow like roots growing into wood. Helen sees it at the same time I do. She steps back, hand on her scanner, running analysis on air she already knows is clean. Whatever did this did not eat them, I say. It took parts. Davidson arrives with the floods. We set up at the well's edge and shine light down into the shaft. The water below is dark and still. The ladder descends about 12 meters before disappearing into the liquid. But along the walls I can see filaments, hair-thin strands running through the mortar between stones, spreading down toward the water channels that feed the fields. I need to know where those channels lead. Helen pulls up a schematic on her tablet. Main water distribution runs underneath the entire settlement. There are access points in almost every building. Feeds into the greenhouses, the residential pods, the administration block. But the pump house is here, She taps a location south of our position. That is where the primary power conduits converge. If something is drawing energy from the colony systems, that is where it would tap in. Then that is where we go. The pump house is a low structure, built half underground for thermal stability. One of those functional buildings that could be a storage bunker or a server room or anything else that needs to stay cool and dry. The door is unsealed. I push it open and the temperature drops immediately. Not cold, but noticeably cooler than the afternoon air outside. The interior is a single large room lined with pipes and conduit runs. The pumps themselves are idling low, circulating coolant at minimal flow. The hum is faint enough to miss without checking the control panel. But what catches my attention is not the equipment. The walls have changed. Someone has cleared away machinery and stripped the space down to bare composite and metal framing, creating an open area maybe 10 meters across. And in the center, sitting on a platform made from welded bed frames and cargo pallets, is an orb. It is the size of a cargo drum, bigger than a person could carry alone. The surface is organic, skin stretched taut like an overripe melon, faint mottling in shades of brown and amber. Warm when I get close enough to feel the radiant heat coming off it. Around the base, filaments spread out in every direction, thin as spider silk but bundled together into cables that run into power conduits, water pipes, cable housings. The thing is plugged directly into the colony's infrastructure. Around the platform, arranged in a loose circle, offerings, a child's shoe, family photographs, work tablets, a set of tags from mining equipment. Things people valued, laid out like gifts. They worshipped it, Helen whispers, or tried to appease it. I move closer. The orb contracts with the slow rhythm of breath or a heartbeat. When it does, the filaments at its base ripple, and I see new threads extruding from the surface. Clear, almost invisible until they catch the light. They creep across the platform toward a section of reflective paneling someone has propped against the wall. Helen is already pulling sample containers from her kit. We need tissue, fluid, structural analysis. I want to know what this thing is and how it got here. I'm about to answer when I hear it. A cough, human. Wet and pained, but unmistakably human. And it is not coming from a speaker or a radio or any of the feeds Beck is monitoring. It is coming from the walls, transmitted through pipes, through metal, through the infrastructure itself. I press my hand against the nearest conduit and feel the vibration of breath. There are people alive in here, I say. They are hiding inside the colony's own bones. I follow the sound through service corridors that branch off the pump house like roots spreading from a trunk. The walls here are bare metal and composite, utilitarian spaces meant for maintenance access, not human occupation. Cable runs overhead, pipes bracket the floor. Everything is narrow enough that I have to turn sideways in places to squeeze through. The cough comes again. Closer now. I key my helmet light and the beam catches condensation frozen on the pipe surfaces, frost that should not exist this far from the cooling systems. "Holt, what are you doing?" Helen's voice in my ear, tight with caution. Following the breathing. The corridor dead ends at a coolant junction, a node where multiple pipes converge and split, controlled by a valve wheel the size of a dinner plate. The frost here is thick. My breath comes out in clouds, and wedged into the crawl space behind the pipes, pressed into gaps no wider than my shoulders. People. 7 of them. Maybe 8. It is hard to count with bodies overlapping. They have crammed themselves into every available space between the coolant lines, hands gripping frozen metal to stay in place, lips blue from cold, eyes tracking me with the kind of awareness that says they are conscious and terrified, and do not know if I am help or the next threat. Someone has rigged a drip tray under the condenser bleed. They've been catching enough water to stay alive. "It is all right," I say, keeping my voice low. "I am Fleet Quarantine. I am here to extract survivors." The nearest one, a man maybe 40 with a beard grown patchy from stress, opens his mouth to speak. What comes out is two voices, his own hoarse and cracked, "Thank God." And underneath, riding the same breath, "We are grateful." The second voice is not an echo. It is simultaneous. Two sets of words using one throat, and the man's face twists with the effort of keeping his own sentence intact while something else tries to finish it differently. I go very still. "Can you move?" I ask him. "Yes." Just his voice this time, forced out through what looks like physical effort. "Then come toward me slowly. Keep your hands where I can see them." He pulls himself forward, releasing his grip on the frozen pipes. His hands are blistered, raw skin where prolonged contact with the cold metal has burned through tissue. He moves with the careful deliberation of someone who knows his body is not entirely his own anymore. When he gets close enough, I see the hard ridges beneath the skin of his throat. Two parallel lines running from collarbone to jaw, raised like cables under plastic. They move when he swallows. "What is your name?" I ask. "David Core, colony engineer." "How long have you been hiding down here?" 6 days, maybe 7. Hard to track time. "The others with you, can they speak?" He glances back at the figures still wedged into the crawl space. "Some. The ones who got closer to it. They stopped talking first. Then they stopped moving like themselves. Then they walked back up to the surface and we never saw them again." "It? You mean the orb?" "We called it them." He says the word like a title, something given weight through repetition. "It grew out of a seed pod someone found in the last supply drop. One of the agronomists thought it was a new fertilizer compound. Put it in the greenhouse. Within 2 days, it had rooted into the irrigation system. The others are emerging now, pulling themselves from between the pipes with the slow movements of people whose muscles have locked from cold and fear. I count 8 total. 3 of them show the same throat ridges as Core. 2 more have swelling at the base of the skull. The remaining 3 look physically intact but move like they are expecting attack from any direction. "Helen," I say into the team channel, "I need medical down here. 8 survivors, multiple showing signs of invasive growth. Bring thermal blankets and water." "Copy, 2 minutes." I turn back to Core. "Tell me what them does." He pulls his collar down, exposing the full length of the ridges. "It builds things, instruments, uses people as components. The first one's infected, it grew these in their throats. New vocal structures. We thought they were sick, some kind of tumor. Then the second voice started. When you speak, does it hurt?" "Only when I fight it." He demonstrates, saying carefully, "I want to leave." The choir underneath tries to say, "We will remain." His jaw locks. For 3 seconds he cannot move his mouth and I see panic in his eyes. The fear of losing control, of being overridden by something that lives inside your own tissue. Then the tension breaks and he gasps. "It gets worse when you are near the orb," he continues. "Loud, like 10 people speaking inside your skull. Some of the others, they stopped being able to tell which thoughts were theirs. They walked up to the surface and stood in front of the cameras, started performing routines, acting normal. Their bodies kept working, but the person inside..." He shakes his head. "Gone. Quiet. And them used what was left." "Used them how?" "To build more bodies." He looks at me directly. "The people you see on the camera feeds, those are not recordings. Those are things walking around wearing colonist parts. Bones for framing, tendons for cable, joints repurposed into hinges. It hollows them out and rebuilds them into puppets that can wave at cameras and walk patrol routes. Makes everything look normal while it keeps harvesting." I process this while Helen arrives with the medical supplies. She starts triage immediately. Thermal blankets around shoulders, temperature checks, visual inspection of the throat and skull swellings. The survivors accept her care with the patience of people who have been too cold and too scared for too long. "Why did it do this?" I ask Core. "What does it want?" I do not think it wants anything, it just executes, like a machine with one instruction. Maintain the appearance of normalcy while you gather resources. We tried to communicate with it. Some of the colonists even built that shrine, left offerings. Nothing changed. It just kept growing and taking and replacing us with mannequins made from our own bodies. One of the other survivors, a woman with grey hair tied back in a braid, speaks up. Her voice is her own, no choir underneath. We tried cutting the filaments, burning them. It grew them back overnight. We tried smashing the orb itself. The filaments defended it, wrapped around our hands and pulled. She holds up her left hand. 3 fingers end in smooth stumps. It takes what it needs. Helen finishes her initial assessment and pulls me aside. The throat structures are integrated into the larynx and esophagus. Removing them surgically would require equipment we do not have here. The skull swellings feel like bone growth, could be invasion into the brainstem. I can stabilize them, keep them warm, but I cannot cure this in the field. Can they travel? If we move slowly and monitor for progression. But halt. If that choir voice gets strong enough to override their voluntary control, they become compromised. We would be extracting the threat along with the survivors. I nod. This is the calculation I knew was coming. Get them to the shuttle, I say. Davidson and Ford will help you move them. I need to inspect the rest of this facility before we evacuate. Core grabs my arm. If you are planning to burn this place, you need to know. Them has spread through every water line, every power conduit. The filaments go everywhere the infrastructure goes. You cannot just bomb the pump house. You would have to sterilize the entire settlement. I know. I leave them to Helen's care and make my way back through the corridors, checking every junction and access point. Core is right. The filaments are everywhere, braided into cable housings, wrapped around pipe seams, growing through ventilation ducts. The colony's infrastructure has become the orb's nervous system. When I return to the pump house, I stand in front of the orb and let myself acknowledge what I am looking at. This is not a creature. Not in any sense I understand. It does not eat. It does not hunt. It does not reproduce through recognizable biological processes. It executes a program: infiltrate, harvest, replace, maintain appearances. A biological tool built for one purpose and set loose to accomplish it. The filaments at its base pulse. New threads extrude and begin creeping toward my boots. I step back and key my command interface. The authority code screen appears. 12 empty characters waiting for input. Below it, a confirmation protocol that requires biometric scan and voice authorization. One sequence of actions between this moment and planetary sterilization. I think about the miner who died because I followed procedure. I think about the 8 people huddled in the coolant channels who will burn if I make the same choice now. I think about what happens if them reaches another colony, another world. A population center where it could harvest thousands instead of dozens. The numbers will not line up. Every scenario I run ends with someone dead by my decision. My vision tunnels. I cannot feel my fingertips. I force myself to inventory my gear aloud. Rifle, torch, medkit, sample bag, scanner, authority interface. The words help. They give me something concrete to focus on while my mind spirals through disaster scenarios. I count each item, touch each piece of equipment, ground myself in physical reality. Then I close the interface. Not yet. Not until I know what I am burning. I am halfway back to the shuttle when my helmet display lights up with an incoming priority transmission. Fleet Admiralty Channel, command authority that overrides local operations. I accept the connection and a simulation interface loads across my vision. A digital reconstruction of an Admiralty briefing room, complete with ranking officer avatars and real-time data displays. Captain Holt, we are tracking your mission status. The voice is synthesized but modeled after a senior officer I met once at a fleet review. The simulation uses his face, his mannerisms, his speaking patterns. Satellite analysis confirms biological contamination at Varnus. We are transmitting updated protocols. Data floods my display. Thermal imaging showing heat signatures consistent with rapid organic growth. Atmospheric samples showing elevated spore counts. Helmet cam footage from another quarantine officer on another world, stumbling through a corridor while something pulls him down, his screaming cutting off mid-transmission. Your authority code is active, the simulation continues. Protocol requires immediate oxidizer dispersal to prevent off-world contamination. The colony is lost. You are authorized to proceed with planetary sterilization. I stop walking. Something about the data presentation is wrong. Send me the source files for that helmet cam footage, I say. Captain, time is critical. Send them now. A pause. Then the files appear in my queue. I pull them up and run metadata analysis while the simulation continues its briefing. The footage is real. That part checks out. But the timestamps drift. One sequence is marked as captured 14 days ago. Another shows the same location from a different angle, marked as 6 days ago. But the officer's uniform shows identical damage patterns in both clips. The same torn shoulder patch. The same bloodstain on the chest plate. I scrub through more footage. A colonist appears in 3 separate clips, allegedly recorded on different days, wearing the same clothes with the same dirt patterns on her sleeves. This is not live intelligence. This is a compilation, edited, curated. Where is this data coming from? I ask. Fleet surveillance network? Which monitoring station? Give me the facility designation. Another pause, longer this time. That information is restricted, Captain. Your concern should be mission execution, not data sourcing. I kill the connection. Helen is waiting at the shuttle ramp when I arrive. What was that transmission? Someone trying to make my decision for me. I look past her at the survivors being loaded into the cargo bay, wrapped in blankets, moving under their own power, but slowly, carefully. How many can walk? All 8. The choir voices are stable for now, but I do not know how long that lasts. Then we move. Get everyone secured and run full medical documentation. I want scans of those throat structures and skull swellings, blood work, anything that helps us understand what we are dealing with. You are not burning the settlement. Helen knows me well enough to read the decision in my posture. Not yet, I say. Not until I verify that footage they sent was real. And not until I give the people hiding in this colony a chance to evacuate. Command will not accept that. Command can file a complaint after I get survivors to safety. I move to the shuttle's external broadcast array and set it to transmit on every frequency the colony's infrastructure can receive. Emergency channels, civilian bands, even the agricultural automation networks. Then I open a wideband channel and speak directly to the empty settlement. This is Quarantine Officer Isaac Holt. If you are breathing, if you are moving under your own power, if you can reach the landing site on your own legs, you have 1 hour to board this shuttle. I am offering evacuation to anyone who passes medical screening. We will scan for infection. We will remove what can be removed. But I will not burn a colony while people are still alive to evacuate. This is your window. 1 hour. I close the channel and turn to Davidson. Set up a perimeter. Cargo nets across the approach corridor, incinerators on the flanks. Anyone who comes through gets scanned before they get close to the shuttle. You think they will come? I think something will answer. The Admiralty simulation reconnects without permission, forcing its interface back across my display. Captain Holt, you are in violation of quarantine protocol. Survivor extraction is not authorized when biological contamination is confirmed. You are ordered to execute planetary sterilization immediately. I'm not taking orders from a compilation of recycled footage. If you want to burn this world, send a real officer to do it. Your authority code will be revoked if you refuse. I reach up and manually disconnect my suit's long-range transmitter. The simulation cuts out mid-sentence, leaving silence in my helmet. Helen is watching me with an expression I cannot quite read. They are not asking you to save anyone, she says quietly. They are telling you to erase the problem. Then they can court-martial me for refusing. I check my chronometer. 57 minutes until the evacuation window closes. 30 seconds later, something moves at the edge of the settlement. A figure emerges from between the residential pods, human-shaped, walking upright, wearing colonist coveralls. From this distance, it could be a survivor responding to my broadcast. But the gait is wrong. The shoulders hike too high with each step. The head tilts at an angle no living neck should sustain comfortably. "Davidson," I say. "Target approaching from the north. Do not fire unless I give the order." The figure continues toward us, 50 meters, 40. I can see its face now, or what remains of one. The features are correct, eyes, nose, mouth arranged in proper configuration, but the eyes do not blink. The mouth hangs slightly open, jaw displaced to one side. At 30 meters it stops and raises one hand in greeting. The gesture is smooth until the shoulder joint, then something grinds, catches, repositions, and continues the motion like a door on damaged hinges. "That is not alive," Helen whispers. I raise my rifle. "Identify yourself." The figure's jaw works, opens too wide, then closes, repositions, opens again in a more natural configuration. When it speaks, the voice is human but the cadence is wrong, syllables stretch too long, pauses in incorrect places. "We are colonists. We come for evacuation." I squeeze the rifle grip, walk forward slowly, stop at the cargo net. It complies. Each step is smoother than the last, as if the thing is learning how to move a human body through practice. At 15 meters, I can see the chest cavity through a tear in the coveralls. The interior is hollow. No organs, no blood, just spooled tendon wrapped around a framework of what might be ribs, and joints that look like kneecaps repurposed into load-bearing hinges. "That is not a colonist," I say. "That is what they become when them finishes with them." The thing tries to smile. Its mouth splits horizontally instead of following the lip line. I fire 6 rounds center mass. The first 3 punch through the hollow chest and exit clean. The 4th and 5th hit framework, and the thing staggers. The 6th severs something critical, and it collapses forward onto the dirt. The filaments inside keep moving. Tendon cables lash out, trying to reconnect severed components, dragging the collapsed body forward another half-meter before Helen steps up with her torch and sets the whole mass burning. The thing does not scream. It does not fight. It just stops functioning when the heat destroys whatever signal was animating it. Behind us, from the cargo bay, I hear someone vomiting. One of the survivors has seen what they might have become. I reload my rifle and scan the settlement. "How many more of those do you think are walking around?" Davidson asks. "Core said some of the colonists went up to the surface and never came back." "If them converted them all." I do the math. Could be 50, could be 100. Depends how many bodies it needed to maintain the illusion. My chronometer shows 41 minutes remaining. "Then we hold the line," I say, "and we separate the living from the built." I shape the corridor in 20 minutes using what the colony left behind. Cargo netting strung between equipment poles creates walls, not strong enough to stop a determined push, but enough to funnel movement into a single path. Portable incinerators bracket the approach, angled so their thermal cones overlap at the midpoint. I space 3 checkpoint stations along the 20-meter corridor. Throat scan, joint density check, motor coordination test. At each station I place a folding table and a handheld scanner. At the final station I add a surgical kit and a bucket of coagulant powder. The saw goes on the table last. Compact bone saw, battery-powered, blade sharp enough to cut through femur in under 10 seconds. Helen watches me lay it out. "You are planning field surgery. If something is growing in a joint and it is not fused yet, I cut it out. They pass or they do not. And if they fail? Quarantine pod. We monitor them until the shuttle lifts, then I decide." She does not argue. There is no argument to make. We both know the math. Davidson and Ford take positions on the flanks with rifles and clear sightlines down the approach. Beck stays in the cockpit, monitoring feeds that still show colonists walking patrol routes and working fields, theater played by puppets we have not burned yet. I open the broadcast channel one more time. 31 minutes. If you are coming, move now. The first group appears 6 minutes later. 3 figures walking together from the residential quarter, moving at different speeds. 2 in the back stay close to each other, their gait natural, their heads turning to check surroundings. The one in front walks alone with that wrong shoulder articulation I already recognize. 2 real, 1 built, I say into the team channel. Let them approach. They reach the cargo net. The 2 in back stop when I raise my hand. The one in front keeps walking until it hits the netting, then stands there with its face pressed against the mesh, jaw working like it is trying to remember how to speak. You 2, I call to the survivors. Step to the left and come through the gap. You, pointing at the borrowed person. Stay where you are. The survivors move. They are young, maybe mid-20s, wearing work clothes with radiation burns on their forearms from handling power cells. Brother and sister by the look of them, same narrow jaw and dark hair. When they reach the first checkpoint, they comply immediately with the throat scan, pulling collars down without being asked. Clean, no ridges, no swelling. Names, I say. Alexis Reeve, the woman says. Her voice is her own, just one track, no choir underneath. This is my brother Jordan. When did you last see the orb? 3 days ago. We hid in the grain silos after our supervisor walked back to the pump house and did not come out. We heard your broadcast and ran. Joint scan shows normal density. Motor test is 3 simple tasks. Touch your nose, stand on one leg for 5 seconds, follow my finger with your eyes. They pass. Go to the shuttle. Helen will process you into the cargo bay. Do not touch anyone already aboard. They move past me toward the ramp. Behind them, the borrowed person is still standing against the netting. Its mouth has been opening and closing in a rhythmic pattern, and now I see why. It is mouthing words. The same phrase repeated over and over, practicing the shape. We are colonists. We come for evacuation. I put 3 rounds through its skull. The head snaps back and the body drops. The filaments inside start crawling out through the neck hole, reaching for the cargo netting to pull the body upright again. Ford steps up with a torch and burns it down to charred bone. 24 minutes, Beck calls. The second wave comes from 3 directions. A man running full sprint from the agricultural quarter, chest heaving, no visible gait abnormalities. 2 figures moving together from the maintenance sheds, one helping the other walk, and 4 more approaching slowly from the direction of the greenhouses. Their formation too perfect, their spacing exactly 2 meters apart. The 4 in formation are built, I say. Davidson, Ford, intercept before they reach the net. Everyone else comes through. The gunfire starts before the runners arrive. Davidson drops 2 of the formed-up figures with headshots. Ford takes the 3rd with a burst to the chest that severs the spinal equivalent. The 4th one breaks formation and charges. Its run is faster than the first borrowed person I killed. Smoother, more refined, like them is learning from each iteration how to move a human body efficiently. It makes it to within 5 meters before Ford's next burst cuts through both knees and it collapses face first into the dirt. The sprinting man reaches the checkpoint gasping. I scan his throat while he bends over with his hands on his knees. Clear. Joints are clean. Motor function is solid. But when I ask his name, 2 voices answer. His own. Martin Walsh. The choir. We are grateful. He straightens immediately, jaw clenched, forcing his mouth closed until the second voice stops trying to speak. When he opens it again, his words come out clipped. It is getting louder, harder to stop, but I can still shoot. Let me help. I look at his hands. No tremor. He is carrying a rifle slung over his shoulder, civilian model, good for pest control and perimeter defense. Can you follow orders? Yes. If that voice speaks without your permission, you signal Helen and step away from the group. Understood? Understood. Then take position on the left flank. Anything that moves wrong, you drop it. He nods and moves to position. Helen catches my eye, her expression making her opinion clear. I do not justify the choice. Walsh is functional and armed, and the things walking toward us outnumber my team. The pair from the maintenance sheds arrive next. An older woman supporting a younger man who is limping badly, his left foot dragging. No choir voices when they speak. Throat scans are clean, but the joint scan on the young man's knee lights up. Density anomaly, temperature spike, foreign mass detected. "Let me see it," I say. He rolls up his pant leg. The knee is swollen, skin stretched tight and discolored. Through the surface, I can see something hard beneath, a shape that does not match bone structure. It moves when he flexes the joint. "How long has it been there?" "Since yesterday. It jumped out of the dirt near the well, latched on before I could move." "Can you walk without assistance?" "Barely." I pull the surgical kit closer. "I can cut it out or you go to quarantine. Choose now." "Cut it out." The older woman, his mother probably, goes pale but does not argue. I inject local anesthetic into the joint capsule, 3 points around the mass. Wait 30 seconds for it to take effect. Then I make the incision with a scalpel, following the curve of the patella. The skin parts and underneath is not just the tick. It has already started laying down plates, thin, bone-like structures that are fusing to his cartilage. "Hold him," I tell the mother. She grips his shoulders. I go in with forceps, working around the edges of the mass, separating the plates from his tissue. The tick is alive. I can feel it trying to anchor deeper, growing new attachments as fast as I cut the old ones. The young man is breathing hard through his teeth, the anesthetic only doing so much against this kind of invasive trauma. I get the forceps around the main body and pull. It comes away with a wet, tearing sound, trailing roots that were already working into his femur. I drop it into the waste bucket, and Helen crushes it with the butt of her rifle before it can crawl out. The wound is bad. Open hole in his knee, exposed joint capsule, bleeding from severed vessels. I pack it with coagulant powder and wrap it in pressure dressing. He will need real surgery eventually, but he can walk. Barely. Get him on the shuttle. They move past me, the young man leaning on his mother, his legs stiff but functional. 17 minutes. The ground shifts under my feet. Not an earthquake. Something moving beneath the surface, pushing soil up in parallel lines that track toward the landing pad. The filaments underground are hardening into structural supports, ribs of dense tissue that crack the surface and create ridges running through the approach corridor like speed bumps made of bone. "Walsh!" I shout. "Anything comes up through that soil, you burn it." He already has his torch out. When the first filament breaks through near the cargo netting, he hits it with a sustained burst. The tissue blackens and contracts, pulling back underground like a burned hand, but more are coming. Dozens of lines converging on the landing site, pushing up through grass and dirt, creating a network of hard ridges that will trap boots and tires if we try to move the shuttle. And then the ticks start emerging. They launch from disturbed soil like gravel thrown from a tire. Small, fast, hard-shelled things the size of a joint capsule. One hits Davidson's shoulder plate and shatters. Another catches Ford across the back of his glove, and he shakes it off before it can find purchase. A third hits the cargo netting and starts cutting through the mesh with mandibles that leave clean edges. "They are targeting movement," Helen yells. A colonist breaks from cover near the greenhouses, sprinting across open ground toward the shuttle. She makes it 10 meters before stepping on one of the soil ridges. Her ankle catches, and she stumbles. 3 ticks launch from the disturbed earth and converge on her exposed leg. Walsh shoots 2 of them mid-flight. The third lands on her calf and immediately begins anchoring. She reaches the checkpoint screaming, clawing at her leg. The tick has already burrowed through fabric and is pressing against her skin, mandibles working. I grab her ankle and pin it against the table. The tick has not penetrated yet, still cutting through the outer dermal layer. I get the scalpel under it, and pry. It comes away whole, legs thrashing, and I crush it with the flat of the blade. "Throat scan," I say. She is crying, but she submits to the check. Clean, joints are clean, motor function intact. "You are through, move." She limps toward the shuttle, favoring the leg where the tick tried to burrow. 11 minutes. An autonomous harvester activates in the northern field. Its startup sequence triggered by them's filaments overriding the safety interlocks. The machine is 3 meters tall, built for cutting grain stalks, with rotating blades that spin at chest height. It begins moving through the rows on a pre-programmed path that will intersect the approach corridor in under 2 minutes. "Davidson, kill that machine." He puts a burst through its control housing. The harvester keeps moving. He targets the hydraulic lines next, 3 shots that puncture the fluid reservoirs and the blades slow, dropping to half speed. Not stopped, but wounded enough that someone fast can get past it. 2 more colonists arrive, running side by side. They vault the soil ridges and reach the checkpoint together. Both pass the throat scan. Both pass the joint check. But when I run the motor coordination test, one of them cannot follow my finger with her eyes. Her gaze stays fixed on a point behind my head, tracking something I cannot see. "Look at my finger," I say. She does not. Her eyes do not move. "Can you hear me?" Yes. Just her voice. No choir, but her pupils are wrong. Dilated fully, not responding to the light. "Quarantine," I tell Helen. "Neural involvement. We monitor her until we lift." The woman's companion, a man in his 50s, grabs my arm. "She is fine. She passed the other tests. Let her through." "She cannot track movement. That is brainstem. She goes to quarantine or she stays here." He releases my arm. Helen leads the woman to the quarantine pod, a sealed compartment with external locks and monitoring equipment. She goes willingly, still looking at something none of us can see. The man watches her go, then turns back to me. "Can you fix her?" I do not know. Maybe doctors on a station can, but not here. He nods and boards the shuttle without another word. 7 minutes. Walsh is speaking into his radio. I can hear both voices in his transmission, his own giving clear tactical observations, the choir underneath saying "we" instead of "I", and trying to finish his sentences with different words. But he is still fighting, still keeping the words his own with visible effort. A borrowed person comes around the corner of a residential pod. Walsh puts it down with a clean headshot before I can even call the target. 4 approaching from the east, he reports. 3 built, 1 real. Take the built ones, let the real one through. He fires in controlled bursts. 3 bodies drop. The survivor zigzags through the fallen and reaches the checkpoint at a dead sprint. A girl, maybe 8 years old, blonde hair in a braid, colony work clothes with the knees blown out. She is alone. "Where is your father?" I ask. She points behind her. A man is running 50 meters back, slower, limping on a twisted ankle but still moving. I start the scans while we wait. Throat is clean. Motor coordination perfect. She tracks my finger precisely, stands on one leg without wobbling, touches her nose on first try. But when I run the joint density scan across her skull base, the display lights up. Hard mass, 2 centimeters in diameter, temperature elevated, anchored in the muscle tissue where the skull meets the spine. A tick. Early stage, not fused to bone yet, but growing. Her father arrives, gasping. "Is she clear?" I do not answer immediately. The scan results are unambiguous. That mass will reach her brainstem in hours, maybe days if we are lucky, but it will get there. And when it does, she stops being herself. "She has a tick at the skull base," I say. His face goes white. "Can you remove it?" "Maybe, but the location is bad. I cut wrong and she dies. I do not cut and it reaches her brain within a day." "Then cut it out, please. She is all I have left." I look at the girl. She is looking back at me with clear eyes, fully aware, completely present. She is scared, but she is not crying. She is waiting to see what I decide about her life. Helen steps up beside me. Holt, that is the brainstem. I cannot walk you through this. We do not have imaging. We do not have proper instruments. This is a field kit and a surgical saw. I know. If you cut, she will probably die. If I do not cut, she definitely changes. You are gambling. I look at the father. He is holding himself upright on willpower and nothing else. Then I look at the girl again. 8 years old, still moving under her own power, still speaking in her own voice. I pick up the scalpel. Sir, I say to the father, hold your daughter's shoulders. Do not let her move. He positions himself behind her, hands gripping her small frame. She does not fight, just closes her eyes and waits. I say into my recorder, I am responsible. We proceed now. I test the scalpel's edge against my glove, sharp. I part her hair and find the mass through palpation, a hard lump beneath the skin, right where the trapezius muscle meets the base of the skull. I mark the location with my thumb and make the first cut. The girl goes rigid but does not scream. Blood wells up immediately. I widen the incision, pulling tissue aside with forceps. The tick is visible now, white and hard, with root structures already threading into muscle fiber. I cut around it, slowly, carefully, separating the roots from tissue, trying not to go too deep. The girl is shaking. Her father is praying under his breath, words I cannot make out. The tick comes away in 3 pieces. I drop them into the waste bucket and they keep twitching until Helen crushes each one with her boot heel. The wound is deep. I can see muscle fiber and the vertebral ridge. I pack it with coagulant layer pressure dressings and wrap her neck to stabilize the site. Can you move your arms? I ask. She lifts both arms. Fingers flex normally. Turn your head left, now right. She complies. Range of motion is limited by the wrapping, but the nerve function is intact. You are through. Her father lifts her and carries her toward the shuttle. She rests her head on his shoulder, eyes open, still watching me. 2 minutes, Beck calls. We need to seal the ramp. I scan the settlement. No more figures approaching. No more movement except the harvesters working their pre-programmed routes and the borrowed people who have given up trying to reach us. Walsh is still at his position, rifle ready, but his radio transmission is coming through entirely in plural pronouns now. He is no longer fighting the choir. He is still following orders, still defending the perimeter. But the person inside has gone quiet. Walsh, I say, board the shuttle. He turns to look at me. His face is his own, but his eyes are not. He walks to the quarantine pod without being directed and seals himself inside. I count bodies. 14 viable survivors in the cargo bay, 3 in quarantine. Walsh, the woman with the neural symptoms, and 1 other whose choir voice started speaking mid-evacuation. 23 confirmed dead from tissue samples and drag marks. 61 unaccounted for. The numbers do not line up to 180 colonists. They never will. Seal the ramp, I tell Beck. Hold for my go. The orb is still down there in the pump house, still growing filaments through every pipe and conduit, still building borrowed people from harvested tissue. And if I leave it intact, someone else will eventually land here, and the theater will start again. I turn to Helen. Get everyone secured for liftoff. I need 30 minutes. For what? To make sure this place stays standing, but the threat does not. I descend into the pump house alone, carrying 8 oxidizer canisters and a remote detonator the size of my palm. The orb is still contracting in its slow rhythm, filaments spreading across the floor toward new growth points. It has tried to extend toward the shuttle. I can see fresh threads working their way up through the foundation vents, but they have not reached far enough yet to matter. I place the canisters in a circle around the platform, spacing them evenly, setting each one to maximum dispersal. The oxidizer will flash ignite on signal, generating enough heat to incinerate organic tissue while leaving the structural supports intact. A kiln. Surgical removal of the threat without collapsing the settlement above it. While I work, something moves in my peripheral vision. a small figure walking slow circles around the orb's base. I turn, rifle up, and freeze. It is built from a child's skeleton, maybe 10 years old when it was harvested. The legs bend backward at the knee with each step. The joint rebuilt wrong, optimized for something other than human locomotion. The arms swing without synchronizing to the gait. The head tilts at an angle that would break a living neck. It does not react to my presence, just continues its patrol loop, performing the last programmed routine. Walk the perimeter, maintain the appearance that someone is tending the shrine, act normal while the harvest continues. I lower my rifle. The thing completes another circuit, passing within 2 meters of me, and I can see where the filaments connect to the spine, surgical precise integration points where them learn to plug directly into the nervous system. This was not the first body it converted. This was built with expertise earned through practice. I step back through the pressure door and seal it. Let the fire take everything at once. At the shuttle, Helen is running final medical documentation. She has the survivors arranged on fold-down seats in the cargo bay, each one wrapped in thermal blankets, each one with a scanner readout taped to the wall behind their head showing vitals and infection markers. The girl with the neck wound is sleeping, her head resting against her father's shoulder. The bandaging is clean, no bleed-through. Her fingers move in small twitches like she is dreaming. "How is she?" I ask. "Stable," Helen says quietly. "You got it all. If we can get her to a station with proper surgical facilities, she will be fine." "And Walsh?" She gestures toward the quarantine pod. Through the window I can see him sitting with his back against the wall, head down, hands resting on his knees. His lips are moving, but no sound comes through the sealed compartment. "He is not fighting it anymore," Helen says. "The choir is running full time. When I asked him to say his name, all 3 voices came through at once. But he is not hostile, not trying to break out. He is just waiting." I move to the window. Walsh looks up, meets my eyes, and presses his palm against the glass. The gesture is his own. I can tell by the deliberation, the way he holds eye contact. Whoever he was is still in there, buried under the voices that have taken over his throat. I press my palm against the glass from my side. He nods once, then looks away. "The other 2 in quarantine?" I ask. "Woman with the neural symptoms is unconscious. The 3rd one is coherent but deteriorating. Choir getting louder every hour. I have them sedated for transport." I pull out my recorder and key it to documentation mode. Survivor count: 14 viable with no active infection markers. 3 in medical quarantine with progressive symptoms. 23 confirmed dead through tissue analysis. 61 unaccounted for, presumed converted into components for borrowed person construction. Threat source: biological tool designated them by colonists. Function appears to be infiltration and replacement of population while maintaining false appearance of normal activity. Motive unknown. Sentience not detected. I attach scanner logs, medical files, and photographs of the orb, the filaments, the borrowed people, and the tick specimens. Then I append the Admiralty's fabricated footage with my own metadata analysis showing the timestamp manipulation and recycled clips. The final addition is 1 sentence. "I defied burn protocol to extract viable survivors. I am responsible. Investigation warranted. Captain Isaac Holt, Quarantine Officer, Authority Code Hotel 73 Kilo." I encrypt the package and transmit it to 3 oversight channels simultaneously, routing around the compromised Admiralty link. The confirmation pings come back within seconds. Received, logged, under review. "We are ready to lift," Beck calls from the cockpit. I pull the detonator from my belt and key the arming sequence. 8 indicators light up green, all canisters active, all timers synchronized. I set the delay to 5 minutes and activate. "Take us up," I tell Beck. "Standard orbit. Hold position over the settlement." The shuttle lifts with the smooth acceleration of a machine that was built for exactly this purpose. Through the viewport, I watch Varnus drop away. The grid of agricultural fields, the cluster of white buildings, the landing pad with its scorch marks where we held the line. At 4 minutes, the survivors are strapped in and secured. At 3 minutes, Helen finishes her equipment check. At 2 minutes, I watch the settlement through the camera feed, counting down, wondering if I made the right call, or if I just killed a colony through hesitation and compromise. At 0, the pump house erupts in white heat. The thermal bloom is visible even from orbit, a sustained flash that turns the underground chamber into a furnace. No explosion, no flying rubble, just heat concentrated in one location, incinerating everything organic while the composite walls hold and the foundation stones crack but do not collapse. It burns for 3 minutes before the oxidizer exhausts itself. When the light fades, the settlement is still standing. Scarred. One building showing stress fractures, but standing. I key the camera to maximum magnification and scan for movement. The borrowed people are gone. Thermal shock from underground would have disabled them even if the fire did not reach them directly. The automated systems continue running, harvesters working their routes, irrigation timers clicking through their cycles. A colony that looks occupied on the feeds but stands empty on the ground. Same as when I arrived. But now the threat underneath has been burned away. Beck's thermal and EM scans show the filament network goes cold within minutes when the core is destroyed. Distal strands desiccate without the parent signal. Set course for Station Barros, I say. Medical isolation protocols. Flag our cargo as biohazard quarantine. Beck acknowledges and feeds the navigation data into the jump computer. We have a 3-day burn ahead of us, and then the real work begins. Medical evaluation, testimony extraction, and whatever consequences command decides I have earned. I turn the brass ring in my pocket 3 times and let myself breathe. 3 weeks later, I stand in a hearing chamber on Station Barros, my commission suspended, facing a panel of 5 officers who have spent the past 21 days reviewing every byte of data I transmitted from Varnus. They do not thank me. They do not condemn me. They ask technical questions about filament growth rates and choir progression timelines. They want to know why I thought field surgery was appropriate for skull-based tick removal. They want to know why I accepted armed assistance from a compromised colonist. They want to know why I defied burn protocol when the Admiralty simulation gave clear orders. I answer each question directly. No justifications, no appeals to emotion. Just facts. What I observed, what I decided, what resulted. Through the chamber window, I can see Varnus turning below. The colony is still under quarantine cordon, automated drones maintaining a no-fly perimeter, while surface teams in full containment gear sweep every structure and sample every pipe. The agricultural fields show burn scars now, strategic strips where they cleared vegetation to create fire breaks. The residential quarter is dark but intact. One cargo shuttle sits on the landing pad, marked with biohazard warnings. The 14 viable survivors have been relocated to medical isolation on 3 different stations. They are alive, they are recovering, they are testifying about what them did to their colony. Walsh and the 2 other quarantine cases are in induced coma on Barros medical deck. Doctors are mapping the foreign structures in their throats, building surgical models, searching for excision methods that might let them speak with one voice again. Helen visits them twice a day to update their charts. She tells me Walsh's neural activity shows normal patterns during the sedation. Whatever is in his throat has not reached his brain yet. The girl spoke her name yesterday. Her father sent me a message. She spoke her name today. No elaboration, no gratitude, just information I needed to know. I do not expect reinstatement. I expect reprimand, demotion, possibly criminal proceedings for authority code violation. Command does not tolerate officers who break protocol even when the results justify the decision. Rules exist because following them prevents disasters 99 times out of 100. I broke the rules, I own that. The panel confers quietly among themselves for 15 minutes. Then, the senior officer, a woman with 30 years of service visible in the citation bars on her uniform, looks up at me. "Captain Holt, we have reviewed your documentation, interviewed the survivors, and analyzed the biological samples retrieved from Varnus. The threat you identified as them has been classified as a Level 4 biological hazard pending further study. The Admiralty simulation that transmitted burn orders to you has been isolated and is currently under investigation for data manipulation. Your decision to delay planetary sterilization is noted." She pauses, and I wait. "Incident findings are under review. You will remain available for consultation. No further action at this time." That is it. No commendation. No court-martial. Just administrative limbo while they decide what to do with an officer who saved 14 lives by refusing to follow orders. Dismissed. I walk the corridor back to my temporary quarters, a 6x8 room with a bunk, a desk, and a window that looks out at the planet I chose not to burn. The brass ring in my pocket has been joined by a second one. Helen brought it to me 2 days ago, before she returned to her own posting. She appeared at my door without announcement, holding a polished ring of metal in her palm. "Airlock seal from Varnus," she said. "Cut it out myself before we lifted. Figured you could use another weight." She set it on my desk and looked at me. "You carried the saw yourself. That is not protocol. That is leadership." Then she left, and I added the ring to my pocket alongside the old one. 2 weights. 2 worlds that remain standing because someone chose to verify before burning. To build a corridor when the easy answer was fire. To cut with his own hands when the protocol said refuse entry. I do not know if Command will ever clear me for active duty again. I do not know if Walsh will wake up speaking with 1 voice or 3. I do not know if the girl's neck will heal without complications, or if her father will ever forgive me for gambling with her life on a field surgical table. What I know is this. Varnus turns below me, scarred and monitored and standing. 14 people breathe in isolation wards across 3 stations, because I refused to make the easy choice. A precedent exists now in the fleet records, a rescue under threat when the standing order was planetary sterilization. Command can accept it or reject it. They can reinstate me or prosecute me. But the world remains and the people remain, because one officer cut the link and took responsibility with his own hands. I turned both rings in my pocket and watched the planet continue its rotation. The work is not finished. There will be more hearings, more testimony, more questions about every decision I made in that pump house and that triage corridor. There will be consequences I have not yet faced. But tonight, in this temporary room, I let myself acknowledge what I built. A path between protocol and genocide, marked with surgical cuts and survivor testimony, and a colony that stands as evidence that verification is worth the cost. I chose conviction over fear. I am responsible. The planet turns. The survivors breathe. The precedent stands.